Hello, guys and gals, and welcome to another episode of Unique Items. This is just another video in a long list of videos. I plan to update all of them for this season because every single unique item got updated this season. And we're going to be going over the Tal Rasha's Iridescent Loop. So this is one of the items that was pulled in from the Season of the Malignant, and a lot of people like the Season of the Malignant item, so they turned it into a ring, and it's been a very popular ring. They've definitely beefed it up a little bit since the previous versions, and let's go over some of this together so we can talk about how overpowered this ring is and why pretty much everybody is using it on their Sorceress. The Tal Rasha's Iridescent Loop is a unique ring that does drop, obviously, from Varshan, which is a very specific boss, because, of course, he's the Malignant boss, and this is the Malignant ring, so it just makes sense to pair them up. It does give 10% all resistances to elements, and it also gives an additional 4% to all elements as well, which Sorceress doesn't really need all res as much as other classes, so not really that big of a deal. It does give a really nice lucky hit chance bonus of 6.9 to 9.2%, and that, of course, can be masterworked higher. It is masterworked higher right now at 4, but it can go a hell of a lot higher than 4. We also have 65.6 to 86.2% non-physical damage. And one of the interesting things about non-physical damage, which has been discovered, is basically that non-physical damage counts as all elements. I know it sounds like it, be like, oh yeah, of course that applies to all elements. But it's more interesting than that. So basically, when you apply non-physical damage to your character, like for instance, damage with cold, damage with poison, and damage with shadow, and you give yourself non-physical damage, like for instance this 74 point set, you notice that all of them go up at the same time. And this means that non-physical damage actually counts as damage with cold, damage with fire, damage with poison, and damage with shadow. It counts as all of them, including damage with lightning. And this means that you can use it to scale things like, for instance, your Frigid Fate board. So, for instance, if you were using, say you were a lightning sorceress and you happen to have the Frigid Fate board, well, the Frigid Fate board actually scales with this. As you can see, I'm currently at 46% times multiplier because I need damage bonus with cold to make this work. And I take off Tal Rasha's, and now you'll see that I am only at 32%. So non-physical damage actually does help with other things besides just simply, like obviously giving you an additive bonus. It actually counts specifically as damage with fire, damage with poison, damage with gold, damage with lightning, etc., etc. Which makes it very, very powerful on the Tal Rasha's Iridescent Loop. On top of this, we also get a really nice cooldown reduction of 6.9 to 9.2. I believe that's 8 base, but I do have it masterworked 4 tiers. On top of this, it also has Potent Warding, which I have a a Masterwork 25% bonus on, so it's currently plus 4. And if you pull up Potent Warding in your Paragon, or is that your skill tree, sorry, Potent Warding is... Why can I not remember where Potent Warding is? I try to remember where all of these are, I swear. And sometimes I just can't really quite get it. I thought one of these was Potent Warding. I feel like I'm completely lost here. I'm not really like the biggest sorcerer player, and I have played a bunch of sorceresses. Sorceressery. Of course, it's not actually adding to it because I don't have it on, which would make it a hell of a lot easier to find if I had it on, because you would get the +4 bonus and then you would see it. Yeah, it's this one. I thought it was this one. So casting a skill grants a 12% all resistance and 8% maximum resistance to that skill's element for 9 seconds. All resistances basically giving you some pretty nice bonuses. So for instance, if I'm using this and you take a look at my resistance stats here, and I cast something, like for instance I cast lightning, you'll notice that I'm sitting at 85% bonus to lightning during that particular time period. And of course if I cast ice blades, I can get ice blade bonus as well. And it's actually pretty nice to be able to cap out your resistances this way just by simply casting multiple spells. And of course the ring itself encourages you to cast multiple elements, so not exactly a terrible thing. Kind of feel silly for not being able to find that as quickly, because I do remember that one being pretty powerful. And of course, if you just put like one more point into it over the +4 that I'm currently getting, it'll go to 15%, and 15% means you're just going to be capped out on everything regardless, even if you don't have materials or any other piece of equipment. On top of this, we also have the effect, the unique effect of this item, which is the most powerful thing and why people tend to like to use it. It says for each elemental damage you deal, you gain up to a 20 times multiplier for that damage, up to 4 seconds. And of course, it goes up to a maximum of 80% times. Dealing elemental damage refreshes all bonuses. Now, of course, they capped it at 4 now instead of 5. So it used to be you could get like all the elements. You used to be able to do fire, ice, lightning, shadow, and poison, and you could get like 5 times basically whatever it said. Now I can only do 4 times, but you can still add in like one additional element, and there's a lot of ways that you could pull that off. You could obviously do that through Andariels, which could be an interesting choice. You could masterwork some cold or, like some shadow or poison damage on one of your weapons. Like there's a bunch of different ways you could achieve it. And honestly, once you have the bonus, it's really easy to maintain. You basically first you just need to dish out something like ice damage. You dish out something like fire damage, and then by the time you're done, you can very easily maintain this. So let's like fire bolts, which is pretty easy. And that's going to give us our 3 multipliers right there. As you can see, we have our 3 multipliers. And how this works is that as long as you're dishing out any elemental damage at all, it's going to refresh it. So as long as you have something going on, even if it's just like crackling energies hitting the target, you'll notice that cooldown is just constantly being refreshed, and I'm at that 3 times or 3 stacks, and it's just going to keep maintaining that 3 stacks bonus for as long as I'm attacking. It's actually really, really easy to maintain Tal Rasha's Loop's bonus, and that's one of the reasons why it's so freaking popular. The flavor text on this says, Fool said he dug it out of the sands near Lut Ghislaine with a few other worthless trinkets. I hid my delight at receiving such a treasure in exchange for a meager handful of coins. Rakan. Now, they did increase the variance. That's 10 to 20% now, and it is a little bit harder to find a really good one of these. I've been trying to farm myself a really good one, and I keep getting like really crappy ones. I think this 13% one was the best one I've gotten so far, which is rather unfortunate. I mean, you pretty much just farm Varshan over and over again. It's not that big of a deal. But if you can find yourself some really nice greater affix versions of this, especially with the non-physical damage, the cooldown reduction, or the lucky hit, the potent warding isn't really too important to have a greater affix on because it does cap out relatively quickly at a 15% bonus. The soft cap for resistances is 70, and the hard cap is 85. So as long as you have 15% on potent warding, it's going to be high enough. Obviously, this isn't going to help you with your poison resistance or your shadow resistance, but it'll still help you with your cold, fire, and lightning at the very least because you can cast those on a regular basis. All in all, Tal Rasha's Iridescent Loop is definitely a very, very powerful item. It makes its way into a large number of builds because of the high multiplier that it offers, the cooldown reduction, the non-physical damage, the lucky hit. I mean, it's got pretty much everything you'd want in a ring except for maybe a little bit of HP, maybe a little bit of crit, perhaps. But a lot of the sorceresses are using Ace Heirloom for the crit, so it doesn't really matter, right? Definitely one of the more solid additions to the game with the Season of Malignant, and was definitely a very fun one to add for the Sorceress in terms of damage output. I don't really think there's a lot of Sorceresses that aren't taking advantage of Tal Rasha's Iridescent Loop these days unless they really just can't fit it in. And it's not really that difficult to add in additional elemental damage. You can do so by adding in things like Ice Blades. You could, of course, utilize things like Firebolt and actually firing it, or you could use Flame Shield. Flame Shield also allows you to dish out fire damage, which a lot of sorceresses are using Flame Shield. You can auto cast Frozen Orbs by using the enchantment, which is also really easy to do. And honestly, in general, there's so many various ways that you can activate the at least the triple bonus that it really is a no-brainer for a lot of characters. As always, I do appreciate you guys and gals joining me. Be sure to check out Diablo4.life where you can pull up the drop tables on a lot of this stuff. As I said, this one comes from Varshan, so it's not really that difficult. But there are a lot of other items you may wonder what particular bosses they come from. And if you go to Diablo4.life, you can definitely pull up a lot of that. As always, I do appreciate you guys and gals watching my content. Be sure to hit that like button and the subscribe button if you enjoy the videos. It really helps out the channel. And as always, keep watching.